So there was a famous master in the Tang Dynasty that in Chinese is called Zhaozhou. His name is Zhaozhou. East Asia is a little confusing, you know, because there's 4 ways to pronounce every kanji, every Chinese character. There's the Chinese way, and actually it varies depending on the part of China. Then there's a Sino-Japanese, a Sino-Korean, and a Sino-Vietnamese. So if you want to look up Zen masters, sometimes you find the name under the Japanese pronunciation, sometime under the Chinese. So Zhaozhou in Japanese is pronounced Zhaozhou. A lot of people think, oh, that's the same as Sasaki Joshu, my teacher, but it's written with completely different characters. Just happen to sound the same in Japanese. So Zhaozhou, or Joshu in Japanese pronunciation, was actually one of the major Zen masters of the late Tang Dynasty. He was a disciple of Master Nanchen. That's Nansen in Japanese pronunciation. And Nanchen was a disciple of one of the sort of founders of Zen, Maatsu, called Baso in Japanese. Nanchen is famous for a rather horrific piece of behavior if you were to take things literally. But you know, these Zen stories you cannot take literally, right? Remember, they point, but they also hook. Okay, and the whole idea is to see what they point to, but not allow your fixations to get hooked by things. So, because when you hear this story, it's like, what? Okay, so I don't know if this story actually happened, okay? It's a little hard to imagine that it actually did happen, but it does point to something. So this story involves Nansen in Japanese pronunciation, and Zhaozhou. Zhaozhou was Nanchen's disciple. So Zhaozhou was out, and a dispute developed among Nanchen's students. The way that the temples were organized in those days is that there was an Eastern Hall and a Western Hall. So the monks in the Eastern Hall and in the Western Hall got into an argument about who owned a cat. This is pretty typical of the tempest in the teapot kind of stuff that we humans are subject to. You may have noticed things like this happening sometimes. Little things become big things. You may have noticed it during this retreat. We call it yogi mind, right? We're all yogis. In the Buddhist sense of the word yogi, it doesn't mean someone that can bend into a pretzel. It means meditators are called yogis. We're yogis. So the sort of weird things that start to happen where you like get little idiosyncrasies of your fellow meditators become sins crying out to heaven for vengeance, or you notice someone and you haven't talked to them, you don't talk to them or anything, but you have this entire scenario of how you found your spiritual soulmate, and it's like this whole thing unfolds, and then when you finally break silence and talk to them for about 3 minutes, it's like, what was I thinking? I don't even want to talk to this person anymore. So these kinds of sort of inflations of little things. We learn to work with them. I highly recommend the poem by Robert Browning called Soliloquy of a Spanish Cloister. If you want to see yogi mind to its max, it's just a brilliant piece of work. How these monks this one monk in specific is like, just lost in these petty rages. Okay, so, East or West, it's the same. This kind of stuff happens. So the East and the West monks were having this dispute over who owns the cat. And so Master Nanchen heard the commotion, came out, and grabbed the cat, held it up with a knife in another hand. Okay, now don't get hooked on this. See what I mean? Okay. Don't take it too literally. There's something being pointed to that's really important. And he said, if any of you can say a word, it will save the cat. Otherwise, I'm going to cut it in two. And they were all fixated in confusion and doubt. So he cut the cat in two, supposedly. Now, I'll give you a heads up. This is leading to a koan. You're going to be asked a question. Shall I give you a hint even before I ask the question? How about that? I will give you a hint. I will tell you, at least in my interpretation, what the answer to the koan is. But maybe not as, well, yes. The answer to the koan is on my t-shirt. So this is like Jeopardy. Okay, so what's the question? The answer is on my t-shirt. If you remember what I said about what this means. Okay, so then what's the question? Well, so when Zhaozhou returned, Nanchen told him the story of what had happened during the day. At which point, Zhaozhou took off his sandals, put them on top of his head, and walked out. To which Nanchen said, Zhaozhou could have saved the cat. So the koan is, why? Why was Zhaozhou the person that could have saved the cat? What do you think? Are you fixated in confusion? There's nothing wrong with being confused. In fact, being confused is really good. Coagulating when you're confused, not good. The goal is not to avoid confusion, doubt, disorientation. The goal is not to avoid don't know. The goal is to avoid the habitual coagulation around don't know. Uncoagulated don't know is called spontaneity when it comes out of your body, and wisdom when it turns in your mind. I repeat, uncoagulated don't know is dynamic spontaneity when it comes out of your body and wisdom when it turns in your mind. So, remember the story? Nanshan asked the monks to turn a word, to say something, to manifest, and they were coagulated in don't know. So they couldn't say anything. So they lost the cat. Zhaozhou had an immediate response. No fixation whatsoever. But what did it mean? What does it mean to put your sandals on your head? The part that's underneath is now on top. Then where are you? And the person that lives there, it would be the kind of person who could save the cat. Zen Master Wuman, commenting on Zhaozhou's activity, said something to the effect of, he grabbed the knife away from Nanshan, and now Nanshan is begging for his life. Praised him that highly. So, you don't understand, right? Or maybe some of you do. So, not understanding is fine. It's good. As long as you're working through the habitual tendencies to coagulate as soon as don't know arises. It was a brilliant way to symbolize without having to use words. What it means to live below the arisings of the world, to live below what is born, to live in zero. The ultimate humility. Such a person could save the cat. So, Zhaozhou is famous for his own koan, maybe one of the most famous koans in the whole history of Zen, and one that Sasaki Roshi talks about a lot. Thank God, otherwise I wouldn't know how to discuss it for you. I've got the cliff notes from an actual master. It relates to exactly the same theme. It's about exactly the same thing, but from a little different perspective. So, Zhaozhou lived in the Tang Dynasty, and the Tang Dynasty was very roughly 600 to 900 AD. It's the golden age of Chinese culture. Interesting, sort of corresponds to really the darkest period of European history. But that was the golden age of Chinese culture. Buddhism came into China before that considerably. Buddhism came into China in the Han Dynasty. Han Dynasty is about 200 BC to 200 AD. So it roughly straddles the beginning of the Christian era. Or you can think of the Han Dynasty as corresponding roughly to the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. So the sort of Roman period, that 400 years, approximately 200 on either side of the time of Jesus, that was Han in China, and Rome was ruling in the Western world. And it was then that Buddhism came into China as a kooky foreign cult from India. So Tang Dynasty is much later, 600-700 years later. It took that many centuries for this kooky foreign cult from India to be fully metabolized into a form that was comfortable for the Chinese, meaning an expression of enlightenment that fit the Chinese culture. And that's Chan or Zen. So these masters from the Tang Dynasty, Ma Zi, Nan Quan, Zhaozhou, that was from that period. It took all those hundreds of years. It's sort of interesting because I think it's only going to take not even 100 years for something similar to happen in the West. But then things move much faster now. So, Northern Chinese to this day call themselves Hanran, which Han, you even see it on the internet, right? Han Chinese. That means as opposed to other ethnic groups that are in China. But people from South China, Tongyang, right? They, like from Hong Kong, Canton, they call themselves Tang people, okay? I guess because why? Maybe it was that I don't know, but in South China they usually, am I correct, usually use Tang instead of Han.
I think it's just later, right?
Yeah, it's just
it's a time. It's just a time period.
It's for whatever reason. So the way Chinese was pronounced in the Tang Dynasty is preserved in South China, whereas the Mandarin, which is spoken in North China, has gone through a lot of modifications, because North China is where there's just a lot of reasons that the language changed up there. So this is a famous story. I'm going to say it in Mandarin. Oh, it's a story about Zhaozhou. But then I asked Philip to say it in Cantonese so you can be able to hear it the way Zhaozhou would have said it and heard it, okay? And there's a very different feeling tone to the language. So here's and then I will translate also into English. But Zhaozhou 和尚因僧问狗子还有佛性也无周云无 Okay, so that's the story in modern Mandarin pronunciation. So Master Zhaozhou Heshang, so Master Zhaozhou in someone happened to be asked by a monk. A monk asked Master Zhaozhou, 狗子还有佛性也无 狗子 means a dog, a puppy. Apparently as they were talking, this little puppy was walking around or something, so the monk pointed to the puppy and said, 狗子还有佛性也无 Does the dog have for Shin, the Buddha nature. Yewu, or not. So yo means have, wu means not have. Now ye makes it an exclusive or, okay? Yes or no, does the dog have the Buddha nature? So that's the part you have to appreciate about this koan, is that the monk is setting a trap for Master Zhaozhou. Okay? Yes or no, exclusive or. Okay? So literally in Chinese it's dog, have, Buddha nature, or no, not have. But there's a little different language feeling to it if you hear it in the way it probably would have sounded to Zhaozhou. So why don't you manifest that? This is the Cantonese pronunciation.
趙州和尚因爭問，九此還有佛性也無，周云無。
So, yao, mo. Sounds a little bit more like the English yes, no. That's why I like it in the Cantonese pronunciation. Yes or no? Does the dog have the Buddha nature? Yao, mo. Okay? What do you think? What's the right answer? Shall I give you a hint? The right answer depends. Depends on the context. There's several right answers, but they're also, those right answers are also wrong answers in a different context. So let's start with the context of traditional Buddhism. From the viewpoint of early Theravada Buddhism, does the dog have a Buddha nature? No. Only a human being can become a Buddha. Animals are too stupid, and gods are too blissed out. The condition that's in between animals and gods is the human condition. Smart enough to figure things out, but uncomfortable enough to be motivated to do something about it. So, early Buddhist idea is human life is very special because only the human life has the right mixture of intelligence, pleasure, and pain to clue a person in to the need for enlightenment. So from that point of view, scholastically, the answer is no, dog doesn't have a Buddha nature. However, from the so that's Hinayana, that's small vehicle point of view. However, from the Mahayana point of view, it is a philosophical item of belief that everything has the Buddha nature. So the Buddha nature the actual characters in Chinese would be written this way. I don't know how much you can see it. This is fo, it's pronounced fo in Mandarin, but it would have been pronounced something like boot a long time ago, so that's from Buddha or Buddha. So this means Buddha, but the interesting character is this one. This means, this side of the character means to be born, and this is heart or mind. So your nature is the consciousness or mind or heart that you're originally born with. So this word, it's pronounced sho in Japanese, xing in Mandarin Chinese. This is a very important word in East Asian Buddhism. Enlightenment, initial enlightenment, what roughly corresponds to stream entry in Southeast Asian Buddhism, is often referred to in Japanese as kensho. Ken means to see, and sho means nature. When you see your nature. But what's interesting is that there's another character, gen, which is very related to ken. They're actually the same word in archaic Chinese. And gen means to manifest. So ken is the I see it, okay? Gen is the it manifests, but they're actually the same word. So the Zen teacher that I studied with, several of them actually, said that kensho, or to see your nature, is really gensho. It's to manifest your nature. So what is your nature? Well, your nature is, there's only one nature. It's the Buddha nature. So how would a teacher interpret the Buddha nature? Well, you know how one teacher interprets it: the activity of expansion, contraction. And that's the interpretation we're going to use here. That's the one I'm familiar with. So, from the viewpoint of Mahayana, does the dog have the Buddha nature? The answer is yes. Scholastically speaking, the answer is yes. So, these are the answers that are correct from a intellectual point of view. But you can be sure that the monk who was trying to set a trap for Zhaozhou was not asking, what's the Theravada party line on dog and Buddha nature, or what's the Mahayana party line on dog or Buddha nature. The monk was no doubt testing the master's ability not to explain, as I just did, the answer, but to manifest the answer. So, if you were Master Zhaozhou and someone set a trap for you that you recognized by asking you an exclusive or question, okay? Yao, mo. Yes or no? Dog have Buddha nature. What are you going to say? What? Good. That would definitely be an acceptable answer. But maybe a little bit more. Go ahead. Manifest. acceptable answer. Now, let's go back to intellectual. The problem with the question was the exclusive or. So, the answer would be to not get caught in the dichotomy of the exclusive or. So the answer that we just gave, going back now to intellectual for a minute, was that, what was that answer in terms of yes and yes, no? It's not yes, it's not no. Is it both or is it neither? Can that happen with just yes or just no? It takes yes and no, right? To mold anything, to manifest any appearance. It takes an interplay of yes and no. So that was the answer, both. Okay? You're expanding and contracting, doing the doing called dog. That's mixing yes and no to manifest the activity called dog. So that's a good answer. But that's not the one that Zhaozhou gave. Yao, mo. Okay? Zhaozhou said, mo. No. No. So, Zhaozhou's N-O. Is it really N-O?
No.
Or is it the closest? If you live in a culture that does not have 0 as a number, then the closest thing that you can have to that which is neither positive nor negative, the only thing that you can do that's beyond yes and no. If you have to choose either yes or no to express that which is neither yes nor no, neither movement from nor towards, neither plus nor minus, neither expansion nor contraction. Well, if you had to do one or the other, it's 0 is more like no than it is like yes. Especially if you say it in a certain way, okay? So the answer to this koan is in how you say the word no. If you say the word no in a way that cancels yes and no, which you can actually hear in the archaic Chinese. In Japanese, it's mu, okay? And in Cantonese, mo. So then, it's 0. The answer is 0, okay? The answer is that which precedes the manifestation of the dog, and that which follows the manifestation of the dog. Except for the point, the still point, there would be no dance, and there is only the dance. T.S. Eliot. So, the both, the polarization of yes and no, to make a dog or a flower or a life or a planet. That is preceded by and followed by what is beyond yes and no. So they're inseparable. It would have been a correct answer to separate yes and no and manifest dog in between. But it's equally a correct answer to bring yes and no together, because that's what's before the both, and that's what's after the both. So it's a cycle. Neither the big no, the zero, the aji honpusho, the alpha privative of the unborn, the place where Zhaozhou acted from, symbolized by being below his sandals, below the earth, below what is born. That place is half of what you need to know to be enlightened. And the other half is when it's yes and no, dancing together. No yes, no no, which is sort of the no with the big capital no. Boom. The way I personally like to point people to this, just my own style, because I like system, is, well, the place where things come from, the zero, the source, is the place that they go to. So you can train yourself gradually, systematically, to start to notice when things disappear. And a sensitivity develops over time until you finally see what happens, why things disappear. The reason things disappear is that the forces, the polar forces that mold them, cancel. And then they repolarize, and then they cancel. It's a cycle. There's another way, well, there's many other ways to come to this same knowledge. One of the most powerful ways is called self-inquiry. It's the flip side of just note gone, just the reversal. In that practice, you're constantly trying to look over your shoulder and see where the moment arose from, the unborn, whence things are born. So that turning 180 degrees, turning consciousness back on itself, asking, who am I? What is this? Not as an intellectual question, but as an observing. So in that case, A has arisen, and you ask, where did A come from? In this other practice, which I like because I can make it systematic and I can gradually train people to do it. There's no gradual training for self-inquiry, you just do it. There's no algorithm, you just do it. The instruction is always the same. You go to the teacher and it's just like, well, where did that come from? Well, where did that come from? So that can be very powerful, but since I like algorithms and system and okay, let's see what's coming up with people and whatever, I like something that I can teach step by step. So I sort of approach it from the other side. Okay, let's see where things go to. But it's the same process, So, so in the just not gone approach, A has arisen, and now let's stay with A until we notice the instant that A vanishes. The instant that A vanishes is also the instant that B arises. The very instant. B, what is B? B is whatever came after A. So if you want to be truly at the absolute now whence something arises, just watch something pass, and then you'll be, either nothing will happen, in which case you're Zhaozhou, or something will happen and you'll notice it coming from nothing. Yes and no. My two favorite words. Really. When I ask someone a question, if they just say yes or just say no, without any modifications, then that's nice. But usually there's modifications. So, as a parting gift, I'm going to slip you the secret. How's that sound?
Yeah.
I'm going to slip you the secret with regards to yes and no. The goal is to have a clear and deep experience of no.